heavens and the earth.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Halo Podcast. This is Season 1 and our very first Christmas episode. I hope you enjoy it. You know, Christmas is a joyous time of year for most of us, but for some, not so much. So let's keep them in our prayers, along with all the folks that are out there serving the rest of us and can't be with their families, okay, during this holiday season. You know, first responders, military service members, doctors, nurses, counselors, and anyone else you may know who's working this holiday season. Today, I'm going to share a personal story. A story from my time on the road as a patrol officer. And as you might imagine, based on what you know about this show, there will be a twist, a God moment, a small miracle maybe. It's a good story, and then we're going to lighten things up a bit with a bit of history from one of our favorite Christmas tales. But before I share, I want to acknowledge 3 brave police officers from the Chicago Police Department. Officer Evangelos Analakis, Officer Raven Morgan, and Officer Jake Schmeiser. All 3 were presented with the Carter Harrison and Lambert Tree Awards for gallant and meritorious actions while on duty. That's a fancy way of saying they are heroes. That's what I call what they did. They may not, but that would be modest. Most people would definitely call it heroism when police officers don't let the threat of being shot stop them from trying to protect others, to protect the people they serve. So these brave officers, Morgan, Analakis, and Schmeiser, were honored for trying to de-escalate a threat from a man who tried to shoot them. That man, the suspect, who will remain nameless, by the way, because we're not giving him an ounce of notoriety, but that man had been terrorizing his neighbors, terrorizing them with not just a handgun, but also a shotgun. And why was he doing this? What was he upset about? This is reality, folks. The suspect was allegedly upset about a news report, so he took it out on his neighbors and actually shot one of them. On top of that, when officers Morgan and Schmeiser showed up, the man attempted to shoot at them. Now, these officers didn't respond in kind. Not yet, anyway. They first tried to calm the man. They ordered him to drop the weapon. Unfortunately, that didn't work. Instead of dropping the weapon and giving up, the suspect allegedly raised the gun on a pedestrian that was in the neighborhood. The officers had no choice now. They had no choice. They had to protect the citizens. So they shot him. Didn't kill him, which is good, but they did shoot. Officer Morgan and Officer Schmeiser then arrested the man, and Officer Analakis coordinated the medical attention needed for the person he shot earlier. Now, interestingly, for Officer Morgan, this was the second time she was honored for her bravery. And she only has 5 years on the job, by the way. That's pretty good. I want to commend these officers. And before we move on, I want to share this little nugget of information, okay? After the ceremony where these officers were honored, Officer Morgan's father said, and he was somewhat joking, but it was probably tongue-in-cheek, but he said that he was actually upset about his daughter receiving an award. Now, why would this be? Well, as a father myself, I agree. He was upset because for her to receive the award, for her to receive the honor, meant that someone else had tried to shoot her. I don't want anyone shooting at my daughter. There's thousands of stories like this. Send them to me, please, if you know of one. I'm at bluehalopodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's move on. God is good. All the time. The personal story I want to share with you is very serious, and on the surface may not seem like a good story to tell around Christmas. But here's the thing. Christmas can be a time of great happiness for many, maybe even most of us, but not all. For some people, it's a time of sadness and depression. I thought long and hard about sharing this story at this time, and well, I think it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate for 2 reasons. First, we need to realize life isn't all dandelions and daffodils. Okay, it's not for everyone. And if we know this, we can help those that need help. And we can watch out for each other and notice the signs when we can, when they're present. Second, we need to learn about what some people experience and to have sympathy. Even if we don't feel what they feel, we can still have an understanding of what they feel and know that it's real for them, that it exists for them. I hope that's enough of an introduction. This is an amazing story. So have you ever had an opinion about something and you were positive? You were sure you were right. Your way was the right way. What you believed just had to be true. Well, if we're honest, all of us experienced this at some point, right? Including me. Mine was a biggie, and I'm glad it happened. I learned something, and I think I'm a better person for it. Here's my story. When I was a senior in high school, about 17, 18 years old, I had the opinion that people who took their own life, completed the act of suicide, were cowards. I believe that people who did this took the easy way out from dealing with their problems, and then in the process, left their loved ones behind to clean up the mess. That's what I thought. A person creates a financial mess for their family, for example, or they commit a crime, or whatever it is. They create this mess, and then they bail out and take their own life. So I held this belief for several years, and then one day, my dad and I happened to have a conversation on this very subject. I'm not sure what led to this conversation. That's not the point. But what I was able to do was share my thoughts with my dad about suicide. So I told him, I thought those people were cowards. Well, my dad is a wise man. He didn't chastise me or tell me my opinion was stupid. Nope. He didn't ignore me, but he also didn't agree with me. So after I shared my views on the matter, he shared his. And you can imagine what happened. My views changed. This is what my dad said to straighten his son out. He said, Jeff, you have no idea what is going on through the mind of a person contemplating suicide. He said that person is not thinking clearly and may be experiencing a mental breakdown. And then he said something else that will also come full circle when I explain the police call I was on. My dad said, and this was, 40 years ago, he said, many times a person thinking about taking their own life may not ever attempt to do it again if they're stopped at the time they try it. In other words, it may be a temporary lack of judgment or a temporary mental issue. Most of the time, it's not a permanent way of thinking, especially if the person gets help. So now let's fast forward about 2 decades to a beautiful, warm, and breezy Sunday morning. And by morning, I mean 3 a.m. in the morning, when most people are still sleeping. I was working third shift. This Saturday night connecting to this Sunday morning was relatively quiet for a Saturday night. It wasn't too busy. So I'm just cruising around, going up and down the neighborhoods of my patrol area, and then all of a sudden, I get a call from dispatch telling me and another squad to respond to a 911 hang-up at a particular address. This was a common type of call, by the way, usually turns out to be nothing significant, usually a mistake or someone screwing around or someone drunk, but usually it's not too serious. But every once in a while, they are very serious. And in my world, very serious means life and death. The reason I bring this up is to let you know why police do what they do, why all law enforcement personnel do what they do and ask you the questions they do, even if it seems annoying. Okay? There is a purpose. I promise you that. And I'm also bringing this up for my fellow law enforcement officers who listen to this show, to always be on your toes and to follow through on every call, so mistakes don't get made. So here I am at the house I was dispatched to. My buddy and coworker Les was also dispatched. We arrived at about the same time. We get out of our squads, we looked the place over from the outside real quick. Everything seemed okay from what we could see, so we go to the front door to make contact with the residents. I knock a few times and wait. I knock again and then wait. After about 60 seconds, I try again, and I basically pound on the door. Now, I should tell you, this was a 2-story home. It was early morning, so it took a little effort to get someone to come to the door. But someone did. After about a minute, a middle-aged woman answered the door, and she seemed, I would say, somewhat annoyed, which is normal. I guess I don't blame her. It's 3 a.m. Her demeanor was less than friendly. She seemed tired. Her hair was a mess. Bottom line, she appeared to me to have been sleeping. Okay, fine. Like I said, many 911 hang-up calls are nothing. So I say to this lady, ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but is everything all right? Did you call 911? And she says, no. And I say, we received a 911 call from this house. And her look was basically priceless. It was one of those, why are you bothering me looks? But she answered my question and said, yeah, everything's fine. And I'm like, okay, I had no reason not to believe her. But I said to her, I have just one more request. Can we come in and look around? Just to make sure. And you all should know that we do this because sometimes people are held under duress. They're held against their will and are made to get rid of the cops. You've all seen the movies where someone is hiding behind a door with a gun and they tell the victim to get rid of the cops or else. So it's sort of like that. So I asked the woman, and she gives me a sigh of disgust, but nonetheless lets us in to look around. Now, this is where an officer might screw up. And I'm talking to our law enforcement listeners right now, because this woman was not happy with our being in her home and waking her up in the middle of the night. It is quite possible that some officers would quickly look around and leave, or maybe not even enter the house at all. I almost did that. We almost just gave the house a quick scan, looking but not seeing, and then left. But thank God we didn't. We took the call to the next level. So I said to the woman, one last thing, and we'll get out of here. Can you please show me your telephone? And I said to her, I just want to make sure the call we got, the 911 call, actually came from your house. And I told her, sometimes mistakes happen or the wrong house is listed. So I said, I just want to hit the redial button to see if the call actually came from her house. She said, fine, again in disgust, but she knew we would leave right away once I saw the phone. So she leads me to the kitchen, and she reaches for the telephone that was supposed to be hanging on the wall. It was one of those cordless phones. And when she reached for it, it wasn't there. The phone wasn't where it was supposed to be. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought she was just going to hand me the phone. But when she realized it wasn't there, she said, whoa, that's odd. And I'm like, yes, that's odd. Where's the phone? I don't know, she said. It's supposed to be right here. This is now the first big clue that something is wrong. Where is the phone? We have to find this phone. So we all start searching. The woman is tearing apart her kitchen. Les is in the living room. I'm in the dining room. We're all searching. Well, within a few seconds, I find the phone sitting on the dining room table on top of some papers. It was a white phone and blended in so we didn't see it at first. Great. Now we have the phone. So I take it, I turn it over, and I find the redial button, and I hit it. I punch the key. And lo and behold, I hear just 3 notes instead of 7. And within seconds, I'm talking to one of my dispatch friends. The original call did come from this house. Clue number 2. We now know the call came from this house. That's a huge deal. There's more going on here than we originally thought. I look at the woman, and before I could say anything, I noticed on the floor, just past where she was standing, a pair of men's work boots. So I say to her, do you have a husband, a boyfriend? Whose boots are these? And she tells me they're her roommates, but he's out for the evening. All I could think of at the time was this would have been nice to know right away. But then again, we didn't ask the question, and she didn't volunteer it. But we had to move on. We now had another person that could be in the home, and that person could be involved in whatever this was. So next, Les and I shift into high gear. He goes upstairs to search while I go into the basement. We're trying to find the roommate. I need to tell you something interesting about this house at this point. It was an old Victorian, probably built in the late 1800s or so. It had great architectural detail, and it also had a second staircase leading to the second floor. So when Les went up to search, he went up one set of stairs, but came down another. The second staircase came down where the basement staircase was, the one I used. So when I went down to search and came back up, Les was coming down the second staircase from the second floor. We met up at that spot. But this spot was also where the back hallway was that led to the backyard. So when we met up, we were both facing this hallway. This is what we observed from our vantage point. We could see that the hallway led to a doorway with a closed screen door. The main door had been left open. Just the screen door was shut, and we could see through the screens to the patio area that was just beyond the door. What I saw at this time reminded me of a large cocoon, A large cocoon that was just swaying back and forth in the breeze. I was about 6 feet away, and this cocoon-like image was only being illuminated by the moon, so it was deceiving. But there was something out there. And at 3 a.m, late in my shift, it was a large cocoon. But it really wasn't, was it? The next thing Les and I did was race toward the door. We did. We literally ran. And we went outside to confront this cocoon. Only it wasn't a cocoon. And as Paul Harvey would say, I'll tell you the rest of the story right after this.
I'm so bored.
Honey, let's play Random Road Trip.
There's nothing to do.
Let's play Random Road Trip.
Hey, I know. Let's play Random Road Trip.
Great idea, honey.
Go to www.randomroadtripthegame.com to learn how you can create a lifetime of memories while spending quality time with the people that you care about. And all for just $20.
Hey, I just had a great idea. The holidays are right around the corner. We should give Random Road Trip games as gifts this year.
Or we should give Random Road Trip games as gifts this year.
I don't know how you come up with these great ideas. What was the website again?
It's www.randomroadtripthegame.com.
Welcome to fun.
Communicating with your children isn't always easy, especially on an emotional level. Until now. Pillow Thoughts is a journal approach of communicating between an adult and a child. So if you've ever had trouble communicating with your child, know that you are not alone. Many parents have the same concern, and there is a solution. Pillow Thoughts. Maybe you want to express to them just how special they are, or maybe they would like to express themselves to you. Let Pillow Thoughts provide the means of communication. Just place the Pillow Thoughts journal under their pillow when you have something to share with them, and they will do the same. It's a loving, private way to communicate with your children that takes away any pressure and stress, for the both of you. To learn more, go to www.pillow-thoughts.com. Don't wait. Writing is good therapy, and it just might make your relationship with your child stronger than ever. Go to www.pillow-thoughts.com and learn how you can get your copy today. Don't miss those special thoughts you and your children can share together. Pillow Thoughts says, I love you.
So, Les and I rush out the back door to confront the cocoon that wasn't a cocoon. But instead, what it was in reality was the woman's roommate hanging from a trellis with an extension cord wrapped around his neck. I hope you all never have to see anything like this. It's surreal. You see stuff like this in the movies, but believe me, it's a whole nother thing in real life. It freaks you out. My first thought when I saw that body swaying in the wind was that it was booby-trapped. I have no idea why I thought that. It's the first thing that came to my mind, and it was so strong that I put out my arms to stop Les from moving. The other thing that's interesting is that thought lasted for all of about a half a second. That's it. The next thing I know, Les is climbing the trellis and unwrapping the extension cord while I lift the man off the ground a few more inches to put some slack in the cord. As Les climbed back down, I laid the man on the ground and I straddled his body and I started slapping him in the face. Trust me, this is not protocol. I saw it in the movies somewhere, so I instinctively just started slapping him in the face to try to revive him. But here's the thing. It worked. The man was not dead. He was only unconscious. It was amazing. He was alive. Rescue showed up soon after, and he was transported to the hospital, and to my knowledge, he is still alive today. Now, we could end the story here. We could, but that wouldn't do it justice. There's more to the story. You already know this. So what's the twist? I don't know if there really is one, but there is a revelation, at least for me. This story, this police call, came back full circle to my high school days and the conversation I had with my dad about suicide. If you remember when Les and I first arrived on the scene and made contact with the woman, I asked her if she called 911. Her response was no, she didn't make the call. Well, if we take her at her word, and we have no reason not to me, she wasn't aware of what was going on. So if she didn't call 911, who did? Think about it for a minute. If she didn't call, who did? If you guessed that it was the man himself, you'd be correct. That's what happened. The victim in this case, the man who tried to take his own life, actually called 911 on himself. On the surface, doesn't that seem strange? Why would he call 911 if he wanted to die? But maybe he didn't want to die. Or maybe he was struggling with whether or not to live or die. When I reflect on this call, I picture this man struggling like one of those cartoon characters who have an angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other, and each one is trying to convince him to do what they want. The demon tugs at him to kill himself while the angel is trying to save him. Well, what I think happened in this case is the angel inside this man had just enough strength to call 911 to basically save himself, because that's what happened. This man saved himself by having the strength, the courage to fight off that demon inside him that was pulling him toward suicide. So this man made the 911 call and threw the phone on the dining room table just in time before the demon took over and led him outside to the trellis. Now back to my dad for a minute and his words of wisdom. Remember, he told me that I had no idea what was going on in this man's mind, or his life for that matter. But he said that we had no idea what was going on in his mind, but that we, or I, just had to accept that what someone was feeling was real to them. I didn't have to experience it to know that it existed, but I could still provide help. We all can provide help. Since that day, I have had several encounters with people contemplating or completing the act of suicide. For many people experiencing it, suicide is a perceived solution to an insolvable problem. But it's not really. There is almost always a solution to the problem. The problem is the person needs help figuring it out. This is where we come in, especially now during the Christmas season. From my research and experience, the holidays don't necessarily make someone's mental health conditions worse. But what I think happens is the holidays can create more stress for some people, and then it is that stress that can increase someone's anxiety or depression or other mental health conditions. I may dive deeper into this topic on another episode in the future. Like I said, though, I have had several encounters during my career with people who are suicidal or with people who have completed the act of suicide, including having 4 high school students. 4, tragically, take their own life during one school year. I'm going to save that for another time because it gets pretty in-depth. But the school where I was a school resource officer became known as Suicide High. That's a terrible name to have. But thank God it passed. It's no longer called Suicide High. So let me wrap this up because I want to end with some holiday cheer for you folks and explain the origin of Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. But first, I want you all to know that there is a silver lining. Maybe I should say a second silver lining to the story I just shared. The first silver lining is that the victim had the courage and the strength to call 911 on himself to get the help he needed. The second silver lining is something I preach about all the time. In any tragedy, if we gain nothing else, or if nothing else comes from it, we can learn from it so we can prevent it from happening again. So how does this relate to today's topic, or at least specifically to the story I just shared? Here's how. Since the time of this call, about 20 years ago, I have shared the details with hundreds of people during various presentations about suicide prevention. People of all ages have heard this story, from high schoolers to the elderly. So maybe, just maybe, someone in the audience was able to use what was said, what was learned, and apply it to something real, a real-life situation they found themselves in, or maybe they were able to share the information with someone else who could apply it. One of my favorite presidents, Teddy Roosevelt, once said, "The more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future." This quote can be applied to all things, not just war or certain social problems. All things in life have a past, whether it's how to grow food, or in our case today, how to better understand someone contemplating suicide. Now, when we come back from a short break, it's the history of Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. You're not going to want to miss it. MusicCenterInc.com, nationwide, worldwide. Since 1945, Music Center Inc. has carried the essentials for what you want for your sound and music needs. Guitars, amps, percussion, DJ lighting, and more. We lean on the team at MusicCenterInc.com for all our professional podcast needs. Visit MusicCenterInc.com's impressive product selection and old school helpful and friendly service today.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows.
Welcome back. Boy, I love that song. Did you know it almost never came to be? There's quite the history behind the story of Rudolph and the song, and I found it in an article by the LifeBridge AmeriCorps program. Now, like many of you, I love Christmas, especially the true meaning, but I also like the other aspects too. I like helping out Santa Claus every year for various charities. I like all the music, especially the older music from decades ago, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, White Christmas, and so many others, like 12 Days of Christmas, Here Comes Santa Claus. There's so many. And there's so much history to each song. There is. I could go on for days. I could talk for days about all of them, but of course I can't do that. So I'm going to just choose one. And the one I chose is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's special to me. Not just the song either, but the whole story. The TV show. You see it every year. The stop motion art form, that was on every year when I was a kid. Still is, I know. But back then, the night it came on, I don't know. There was just something special about it, something magical about it. At least it was for me. So that's why I chose the story of Rudolph to highlight in our first Christmas episode. I hope you like it. As the holiday season of 1938 came to Chicago, Bob May wasn't feeling much comfort or joy. A 34-year-old ad writer from Montgomery Ward, May was exhausted and nearly broke. His wife, Evelyn, was bedridden on the losing end of a 2-year battle with cancer. This left Bob to look after their 4-year-old daughter, Barbara. One night, Barbara asked her father, "Why isn't Mommy like everybody else's mommy?" As he struggled to answer his daughter's question, Bob remembered the pain of his own childhood. A small, sickly boy, he was constantly picked on and called names. But he wanted to give his daughter hope and show her that being different was nothing to be ashamed of. More than that, he wanted her to know that he loved her and would always take care of her. So he began to spin a tale about a reindeer with a bright red nose who found a special place on Santa's team. Barbara loved the story so much that she made her father tell it every night before bedtime. As he did, the story grew more elaborate. And because he couldn't afford to buy his daughter a gift for Christmas, Bob decided to turn the story into a homemade picture book. In early December, Bob's wife passed away. Though he was heartbroken, he kept working on the book for his daughter. A few days before Christmas, he reluctantly attended a company party at Montgomery Ward. His co-workers encouraged him to share the story he had written. After he read it, there was a standing ovation. Everyone wanted copies of their own. Montgomery Ward bought the rights to the book from their debt-ridden employee, and over the next 6 years, at Christmas, they gave away 6 million copies of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to shoppers. Every major publishing house in the country was making offers to obtain the book. In an incredible display of goodwill, the head of the department store returned all rights to Bob May, and 4 years later, Rudolph had made him into a millionaire. Now remarried with a growing family, May felt blessed by his good fortune. But there was more to come. His brother-in-law, a successful songwriter named Johnny Marks, set the uplifting story to music, and the song was pitched to artists from Bing Crosby on down. They all passed. Finally, Marks approached Gene Autry. The cowboy star had scored a holiday hit with Here Comes Santa Claus a few years before. Like the others, Autry wasn't impressed with the song about the misfit reindeer, and Marks begged him to give it a second listen. Autry then played it for his wife, Ina. She was so touched by the line, "They wouldn't let poor Rudolph play in any reindeer games," that she insisted her husband record the tune, and within a few years, it had become the second best-selling Christmas song ever, right behind White Christmas. Since then, Rudolph has come to life in TV specials, cartoons, movies, toys, games, coloring books, greeting cards, and even a Ringling Brothers circus act. The little red-nosed reindeer dreamed up by Bob May and immortalized in song by Johnny Marks, has come to symbolize Christmas as much as Santa Claus, evergreen trees, and presents. As the last line of the song says,
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history.
ho, 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 Merry Christmas, everyone. I told you I helped Santa. That was my Santa impression, by the way. Anyway, I hope you liked the story of Rudolph, and I hope you truly got something out of the story of the man struggling with suicide, the silver lining, and of course, again, I want to commend officers Morgan, Schmeiser, and Analakis from the Chicago Police Department for their service and bravery. And to all of you, thanks for listening. I hope to hear from you, and please remember the reason for the season. Merry Christmas.